You know what? I think I'll watch. I wanted to watch this one. I opened it myself, but it seemed pretty interesting. I saw it in my recommendation, and I was actually going to watch it on my own. But then I figured maybe we could watch it on stream, and why not? Let's watch, you know, like another true crime video. They tend to be very, very interesting. And this is by the channel Fern, which we've reacted to quite a few videos before. I quite like the presentation, so let's learn about stuff. This is The Hunt for America's Smartest Serial Killer by Fern.
My motive for doing what I am going to do is simply personal revenge. I do not expect to accomplish anything by it.
Damn.
Lincoln, Montana, 1996.
Is it the bomber
This
guy?
cabin is the
I think I know
chosen
about
home
him.
of Theodore J. Kaczynski, more commonly known as the Unabomber.
I requested it
He's
myself.
long been
Indeed.
feared as America's smartest criminal, a serial bomber who's killed
Okay, so yeah, I've heard of the Unibomber before, but just that he bombed places. So why is he smart?
and wounded targets across the country with no clear connection. For 17
Unabomber.
years, he's eluded the FBI. It's the largest, most expensive manhunt in the Bureau's history. He's the evil genius they simply can't catch. Likely history's most intellectual serial killer. He's terrorized the nation, instilling fear in Americans about opening their mail and getting on planes.
He has an
And he did
IQ,
it all
so
from his
I
cabin.
understand. You have to have an IQ to understand
Here
the
is
serial
where he
killer.
built his bombs, where he wrote his manifesto, and where he evaded capture for nearly 2 decades. It's
That's
where
a
he
small
turned
cabin,
from
huh?
off-the-grid recluse to world-famous murderer. This cabin
Okay.
contains all the evidence the FBI will need to convict him. It's located deep in the Montana wilderness. Back in 1969, Ted moved here from California, where he left behind a shining career as a math professor at UC Berkeley. He wanted to get closer to nature and far, far away from everyone who pisses him off, which is most people. He
Understandable.
built this cabin with his brother, back when Ted still talked to him. It's got no electricity, no plumbing, just a wood stove, a bed, and a whole lot of books.
Some guns, of
Right
course.
now, Ted is building another bomb. They're meticulously crafted, and he's continuously improving his technique. Every year, they become more lethal. In fact, he's got another one under his bed, wrapped and ready to go. But he won't get a chance to send it, because despite his intellect, he made some pretty dumb mistakes.
Well, then is he really smart, huh? That's always my question. Huh? I've definitely heard of the Unabomber, but just the name, I guess, and that he was making bomb. I don't know who he was killing, why he was killing people, and why he was smart, so yeah. I guess it should be interesting. That was creepy. It feels like a TV show intro. The Hunt for America's Smartest Criminal.
This video is largely based on these 2 books. Links are in the description.
We attribute the social and psychological problems of modern society to the fact that that society requires people to live under conditions radically different from those under which the human race evolved.
Yeah?
Born in 1942, Ted grows up in a pretty average family in the suburbs of Chicago. They're working-class Polish Americans. His parents are politically progressive, bookish and intellectual, and really into the outdoors. They're strict but loving. At least, that's how they remember it. It becomes obvious at a young age that Ted is exceptionally gifted, so his parents push him to succeed. He skips 2 grades and easily aces every class.
2 grades,
He's
huh?
a pretty normal kid for someone with an IQ of 168. Sure, Ted is quiet, shy
One
around
shot.
girls, and arrogant. But he has a
Unfortunate.
core circle of friends and plenty of hobbies. Like his parents and brother, he loves playing music, reading, and camping. People like Ted. They'll later remember him as a sensitive, respectful kid.
So not a messed up childhood, okay. Or maybe the
All
whole
that
situation
starts
is
to change
worse
when
than we
Ted
think.
enrolls at Harvard University at just 16
Oh,
years
wow.
old. Like many college freshmen, Ted struggles to adjust. Here, he no longer feels like the smartest person in every room. and as a working class kid thrown into the world of America's elite, he's a fish out of water. Other students and even faculty mock his shabby clothes and blue-collar background. He's deeply bothered by their snobbery, pain that will follow him through life.
Okay.
Ted's also just really young, younger than almost everyone else on campus. As an adult, Ted will
He's
write his mother
16, huh?
furious letters about this. He demands apologies for pushing him out of the house before he was ready. Ted becomes depressed, and his grades suffer. His classmates describe him as a total loner, moody, rude, and virtually mute. He's that guy on the dorm floor who only leaves his room to go to class, who ignores everyone else, who slams doors. There's a stench of rotting food wafting from his room. Ted doesn't know it yet, but his withdrawn and alienated demeanor has caught the eye of a psychology professor. Dr. Henry A. Murray is very famous, with an on-campus research center named after him. He's basically a god in the social sciences. Murray is looking out for particular types of students, those who will make excellent guinea pigs for an experiment. His final, most elaborate experiment, the capstone of a long and illustrious career.
Oh boy.
It also happens to be a CIA-funded project designed to cause extreme distress and break down the subject's sense of self.
NK something, no? Or is...
Clearly, we are in a position to do a great deal of damage, and it does appear that the FBI is not going to catch us anytime soon. The FBI is a joke.
Damn.
It's the 1970s in San Francisco. The city is a hotbed of anti-government activity. There's outrage over the Vietnam War. Protest bombings are a regular occurrence. Explosions happen every week up through the mid-80s. The FBI dubs it the Belfast of North America. Radical far-left groups like the Weather Underground and the Symbionese Liberation Army claim credit for many of the bombings. So most of the cases are pretty straightforward in terms of understanding motive and perpetrator. But amidst all of this, the FBI's San Francisco bomb squad makes a shocking discovery. 12 mysterious, similarly built bombs can be linked to one elusive killer or group. They have next to nothing to go on. Just for whatever unknown reason, this string of explosives seems to target universities and airlines. Whoever is building these bombs is an expert crafter and careful to not leave any DNA behind. Not a hair, not a fiber. They're encased in beautiful handmade wooden boxes. There are no eyewitnesses to the bombings, and no letters from organizations claiming credit. The victims appear to be scattershot of random people. The unknown perpetrator is referred to by the code Unibomb for university and airline bomber. So far, his bombs have killed one person and injured 20 others across 5 different states. Unlucky recipients of the Unibomber's early packages include a campus security guard, a handful of graduate students and professors, a secretary, an airline executive, and passengers on a flight from Chicago to DC.
Like, is it maybe some of the people he didn't like back in his school days, basically? Or is it actually random?
Some are injured quite badly. The first death is in 1985, Hugh Scruton, a guy who owned a computer store in Sacramento and was about to get married. What does he have to do with anything at all?
Right.
Far away in his cabin, Ted reads about his death and chuckles to himself. He hears that the FBI offers a $25,000 reward for any information. He's flattered. The Unabomber is making waves. Not bad for the actions of one man in a 10 by 12 foot shack with no electricity, running water, or phone service. Pretty hard to imagine now. These days, connection isn't optional. It's how we get around,
really proud of
check
bombing
in,
people.
look stuff up, call for help, all of it. That's where Saley comes in. With affordable
Also,
global data in over 200 destinations in 8 regions, Saley is the eSIM provider that keeps
you know, fucked up to say, but also like he's so proud after like sending like 20 bombs and only killing one person. Like it's a good thing, obviously. We don't want people dying, but is he really proud of that?
Once you arrive at your destination,
that's a terrible win-loss ratio. That's all I can say.
Saley gives you a heads up when your data is running low. You can top up in seconds. Simply download the Saley app and use code FERNTV to get an exclusive 15% discount on your first purchase. Money back guarantee in case your device is not compatible. Back to Ted. Here in his cabin, he's got everything he needs. Snowshoes, maps, a homemade chair, a cot, a typewriter, and hundreds of books. Scraps from junkyards and jars of chemicals for making his bombs. binders and binders full of notes, all kinds of disguises for delivering the bombs, like wigs and sunglasses, and shoes with fake soles. It's crammed to the gills, but meticulously organized. At this point, the FBI has zero promising leads, and by the end of it all, they'll never actually find the perpetrator themselves. The bomber is always several steps ahead of them. They'll
He's
pursue
gonna give himself
thousands of dead
away.
ends, spend hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars, and pour countless man-hours into this case. They have no idea why he's targeting the people that he is, but the bombs are so precise, so well crafted. There's gotta be a motive, right?
Right.
In 1987, there's finally a break in the case. The Unabomber plants a package outside a Salt Lake City computer store, and a lady spots
Computer
him.
store again.
He's wearing a gray hoodie, sunglasses, and sporting a mustache. The police create a sketch and post it all around the country. The bombings immediately stop, and for 5 years, nobody hears anything from the
5
Unabomber.
years. He went silent.
All kinds of people call him with tips, but the leads go nowhere. The case pretty much goes cold, but the FBI know that it's only a matter of time before he'll strike again. They're sure he's using the time to perfect his bombs. And they're right. In his cabin, Ted is finessing his technique. The upcoming bombs will be a whole lot more lethal. But, as the world will soon find out, he is also busy writing. He doesn't just want his explosives to do the
Manifesto.
talking. He's crafting a manifesto, one that claims to explain what the mysterious string of bombings is all about.
Is he just gonna say society is bad, so I'm killing people?
The technophiles are taking us all on an utterly reckless ride into the unknown.
That's what he's doing. That's
Back
why
at
he's going
Harvard
after
in
computer shop.
1958, the United States is experiencing huge shifts in culture.
Wow.
The button-up 50s are drawing to a close, and the nation becomes swept up in the space race, the civil rights movement, the sexual revolution, the environmental movement, the explosion of drug culture, and all the while, the Cold War is escalating. The American military is paranoid that communists have developed mind control drugs and brainwashing techniques, and they're eager to catch up. So they're covertly experimenting with ways to manipulate behavior. US intelligence officials are especially interested in developing a perfect truth.
So is that what happened? Like, they did some fucked up experiments on him, and so, like, he became crazy because of that?
Drug for interrogating enemies, and they believe LSD might be it. But they're also testing a wide range of ways that psychological manipulation could bend the will of anyone to do whatever the US military wants. They've even enlisted help from the Nazi scientists who experimented on Dachau inmates with hallucinogens and interrogation methods. The military illegally smuggles these war criminals over
Bruh.
to get their advice on brainwashing, as part of Operation Paperclip. Over the course of at least 11 years, thousands of Americans are subjected to unethical psychological experiments that include sensory deprivation, hallucinogenic drugs dosed without consent, subliminal messaging, hypnosis, electroshock therapy, and even ice pick lobotomies. And that's just the
That's
stuff we know
insane.
about.
I speak lobotomies in that time. Like, lobotomies, when did they actually stop being a thing? I thought it was like, you know, a few decades before that, at the very least. Like, this was what, 60s, 70s? 70s, and there was still like, I speak lobotomy. Did they really not learn anything from history? That lobotomy literally like don't fix anything, don't only make things worse. Come on. At the very least, I can say like testing drugs, you know, there's some logic to it. But lobotomy in the 70s, like, come on. What the fuck?
When the project becomes public knowledge in the 1970s, the CIA director orders most of the records to be destroyed. The program is codenamed MK-Ultra.
That's what I thought.
Many of the test subjects are vulnerable populations,
I've
like
heard of it.
prisoners and hospital inmates, but also students. Students are prime subjects for these experiments because of their frequent contact with professors who play a big part in MK-Ultra.
Okay.
Some of the professors know the role they play. Many don't. During the post-war period, the CIA becomes the largest employer of college professors, and the military is by far the biggest.
I mean, not to be Mr. Ethic, but, you know, it's fucked up no matter what, but, like, you know, I'm sure there must be enough death row inmates, you know, like, or people with life in prison that they could do that on. It's still fucked up and should not be done. But why students? Like, they're using inmates, and then they're like, might as well use students for that? Huh? And fucking Harvard student of all people? Like, the supposedly brightest for the future of the country, and they're doing, like, brainwashing experiment on them? Like, this all sounds so stupid.
Source of funding for psychological research. Professors acted as consultants and researchers for military-backed projects. They used their status to encourage their students to participate in experiments, often involving drugs like LSD. Afterwards, they reported back to the government. Harvard becomes heavily involved in Army-sponsored studies. One of the CIA's main men on campus is the superstar psych professor, Henry Murray. Murray is well known for his studies of personality, and since the CIA's beginnings, his theories have influenced how they recruit new agents and how they interrogate suspects. When Murray and young Ted Kaczynski cross paths, Murray is at the end of his career, and he recruits Ted for his final, most elaborate experiments. They're meant to assess the effects of stress and harsh interrogation on gifted male students. Murray wants to know, what will it take to break an educated, intelligent man? The setup is simple. Ted and 21 other students are asked to write an essay about their most deep-seated beliefs. Then they're told they'll discuss their beliefs with a fellow undergrad. The experiment aims to compare the effects of stress on college men who seem psychologically healthy and well-adjusted, with students who seem alienated, pessimistic, and lacking in identity. Ted is most likely recruited for the second group because he's showing signs of depression.
Alright.
Ted's personal essay stands out as the most pessimistic of them all. It suggests that he was already vulnerable before the abusive test began. He is also the youngest and the poorest in the group. The students are told this exercise is just to study different personalities. In truth, now the real experiment begins. The essays are handed to lawyers trained in manipulation, who are instructed to attack the values expressed in them. The students endure harsh interrogations in brightly lit rooms. They face calculated personal critiques designed to humiliate and erode their sense of self. All the while, electrodes monitor their stress responses. Later, they have to watch these stressful and humiliating moments on video, over and over again, for 3 years.
3
As Murray
years.
himself describes it, the tests were designed to be
What the
abusive.
fuck?
He's had a lifelong fascination with pain and stress and is known to have a sadistic streak. Plenty of participants will later report the experience to be deeply unpleasant, with lasting trauma. But
Yeah,
Ted's responses are the most extreme in
I
every
can only
category.
imagine.
Murray's team identifies him as the most traumatized of all. Yes, Ted Kaczynski.
I mean, what can I say? Like, they created a monster. Yeah. Now, if he's bombing the people who did this to him, like, I wouldn't say it's quite right, but also, you know, I'm not that mad, but I kind of feel like he's probably gonna bomb people who actually don't deserve it in the same way as the people who did this to him. What an insane test. Man.
Got MK Ultra'd. You can read all about it at CIA.gov. In consequence, many claim the CIA created the Unabomber, but that's an oversimplification.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not so easy to prove how much effect the experiments had on Ted's turn to terrorism. None of the other students in the experiment are known to have become killers. Some psychologists believe the experiment.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, like 99.99% of the millions of people who go to terrible experience in their life, they still don't go murder people and become terrorists, right? But still, some do, and the terrible shit they went through is often one of the big reasons that they become like that. Right?
Experiments were stressful enough to create anger problems in Ted, or even aggravate latent schizophrenia. But other psychologists evaluate him as undeniably sane. Ted himself dismissed the idea that the tests were anything resembling psychological torture. He was very invested in being seen as psychologically healthy until the bitter end. He's taking great pains to not be painted as damaged or crazy. He wanted his murders to be understood in the context of his beliefs, not his personal history. If
Okay.
people saw his actions as a result of trauma or madness, it would invalidate his ideas. Ideas that formed his last year at Harvard.
I mean, your ideas might still be fine,
Ted becomes increasingly disillusioned with the industrial technological system.
not
He
your
comes to believe
actions.
that technology is slowly destroying humanity and eroding our
That's what it
freedom.
is.
He's horrified by widespread psychological suffering and how industrial technology has severely damaged the planet. He's certain that it'll only get worse the more technology develops. So anyone who helps advance technology in any way is the enemy. Scientists, engineers, business people, what Ted calls the technician class. Ted starts having revenge fantasies and becomes obsessed with how society enforces obedience with psychological controls. He daydreams about breaking away from society and living off the grid. Ted graduates
Everybody
Harvard
does,
and
to an
goes on to
extent,
get his PhD in math.
Well, that's the actual guy. I mean, everybody maybe not, but I think a lot of people had thought that before, you know? Like all this bullshit of modern life and all that, you know, let me just go in the wild, make my cabin, try to live off the land. I mean, most people might have thought that at one point, even if it was never that serious, because most of us are just not built for that anymore, right? Like, yeah, I can get that appeal. But, you know, what I can agree to an extent that, technology and the advance of civilization in the last 1 to 200 years have become pretty crazy and has opened a lot of Pandora box, like we were talking earlier with the atomic bomb video. Like, it's inevitable. I mean, starting to bomb a bunch of random people is not going to change anything. So, yeah, again, like, his actions in the end is what I will like really judge. His thoughts, I can to an extent agree. Maybe, if it was even possible for all of humanity to agree to just revert back to simpler time, if we all agreed that was actually good, things would be nice, but bombing people is not going to change that.
At the University of Michigan. He's quickly establishing himself as a brilliant mathematician and is offered a tenure track position at UC Berkeley as their youngest professor ever. His students don't like him very much, but he's publishing groundbreaking papers on boundary functions. But Ted resigns one day without warning. He tells his family that he's done with teaching math to future engineers who will advance the industrial technological system and continue destroying the planet. Ted buys a bit of land near Lincoln, Montana, and builds a cabin with his brother. He's ready to escape the advanced technology that surrounded him at UC Berkeley. He wants to live a simpler life, far away from everyone he's ever known.
Isn't it also kind of, maybe it's part of his point, but ironic, is that the right word? That is making a point about technology bad while himself using the thousands of years of advancement of humanity and understanding of, science, physics, and, stuff for making bombs and explosions, right? Like, or is it the point? Like, he's using technology to cause death and saying, it's bad, see, it's bad.
And he starts to build his first bomb.
The Unabomber speaks.
Through our bombings, we hope to promote social instability. In industrial society,
Oui.
Propagate anti-industrial ideas,
Aren't you alone?
give encouragement to those who hate the industrial system.
In 1993, the Unabomber strikes twice after a 6-year hiatus. Two prominent researchers, a computer scientist and a geneticist, receive packages the size of a VHS tape.
So it's really random
the bombs
people.
detonate upon opening. And both professors are badly injured.
Not dead.
Shortly after, the New York Times receives a typewritten letter. It claims credit for the bombs and says the public should expect more to come. In 1994 and 1995, the Unabomber succeeds in killing 2 people with his mail bombs, an advertising executive and a forestry lobbyist. As feared, his explosives have become notably more sophisticated. Bombings are usually accompanied with demands for money or some kind of action. What made the Unabomber so difficult to understand and to find is that his bombs never came with any requests. They seem to be built only to cause fear, injury, and death. 17 years after starting his bombing spree, the Unabomber finally makes his demands known. He writes the New York Times again, announces that he will permanently desist from terrorist activities if they publish a 56-page manifesto. The request kicks off a fierce debate within the FBI and the newspaper, to publish or not to publish. The FBI has a clear policy to not negotiate with terrorists, but they also believe he'll honor his promise and stop killing people.
You do?
After all, this is what the bombs were seemingly for, to force people to pay attention to his views. Plus, they still lack leads. If the public reads the manifesto, someone might be able to identify the Unabomber. So the manifesto is published.
I feel like he might be his brother or something.
The Washington Post, though, because it has fewer readers, and the newspaper's stance will be easier to surveil. So they think. Interest in the Unabomber is huge.
Everybody wants to know,
hit a record high that day, with lines snaking around the block.
What does the killer have to say?
Americans are eager to finally read what the Unabomber has to say. The manifesto opens with an iconic line.
The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race.
And though the manifesto is an argument that calls for dismantling industrial society, it's also, unwittingly, a self-portrait. Within its pages, the Unabomber has accidentally unmasked himself.
Oh shit. Someone's gonna recognize
David
him.
and Ted, though 7 years apart and very different, grew up close and loved each other very much.
I called it.
As adults, they had impassioned philosophical debates by mail, and shared a lot of the same views. David also worried about technology's destructive effect on humanity. He'd also spent some time living off the grid in a self-made cabin. But David wasn't a killer. When the manifesto is published, he hasn't spoken to his brother in a long time. Ted cut him out when David got married and refused to answer any of his letters. David's wife Linda, a philosophy professor, has a funny feeling about Ted, whom she never met. As the bombings stack up and some of the timings coincide with Ted's travels, Linda tells David, "You've got a screwy brother. Maybe he's the Unabomber." David doesn't want to hear it. Linda doesn't know Ted the way David does. He'd never kill anybody. As a kid, Ted used to cry at the thought of animals getting hurt. But when the manifesto is finally published, David avoids reading it. He doesn't want to admit the similarities. That, like the Unabomber, Ted is an excellent carpenter, and that he had a lifelong fascination with explosives, and that some of the dates match up perfectly with Ted's travels. David only reads it when Linda insists. His jaw literally drops from the first few lines.
He knows.
The killer, like Ted, also hates technology. As it continues, David recognizes idiosyncratic word choices and logical arguments that Ted uses all the time. There is no escaping the truth.
I was gonna say someone like Ted would have, you know, if he ever talked about his view to anyone, he would have just constantly talked about it, and you would definitely recognize it, yeah.
Ted is the Unabomber. So after some moral qualms about betraying his brother, David alerts the FBI.
Come on, yeah. You have to. A knock at the cabin door.
They are bound to make me out to be a sickie, and to ascribe to me motives of a sordid, or sick type. Many tame, conformist types seem to have a powerful need to depict the enemy of society as sordid, repulsive, or sick.
But, I mean, I can see a little bit of his point, but you still are sick and sordid and fucked up. I mean, you know, like, the idea that you have are fine, but the actions of bombing people, like random innocent people, for it automatically kind of, to me at least, like, makes me not care about your points, right? And obviously, again, like, as he said himself, he might not want people to look at his past for maybe something that made him like this. He wants his view to be examined by their own. And again, I'm more than willing to say, yeah, like, you know, there's maybe some point to be made. We've entered a era of humanity right now where things are terrifying. So many countries might have literally the power to obliterate each other in seconds. But that's just the way it is. We're not going back. There's no stopping the Industrial Revolution and all that. So bombing random people to make the point that technology bad is just brain dead to me. And yeah, again, even if I ignore his backstory, to justify his action, or to not justify his action, to understand what led him to be like this, yeah, I mean, your point is shit, and you are sordid indeed. Because of the action.
Lincoln, Montana, April 1996. With the tip from David, the feds are staking out Ted's cabin. The investigation is meant to be conducted quietly, but they're interviewing local townspeople, trying to collect more evidence on Ted. Right now, all they have is the linguistic similarities in the manifesto and old letters from Ted that David gave the FBI. Not exactly cold, hard proof. Enough for a search warrant, but not an arrest. Rumors start to spread around town that Ted...
Well, they just need to get inside, right? He has all the bomb and everything.
Kaczynski, their very own angry hermit, is the Unabomber. The plan is to draw Ted out of his cabin and get inside before he can escape or destroy any evidence. But they don't know if he has it tricked out with explosives. Nobody would be surprised if he did.
Yeah.
Ted has no idea he's under surveillance, so when someone knocks and says some land surveyors need to talk, he believes them and opens the door. He wasn't expecting visitors. These days, he's busy with a dirty job. He's in the middle of rasping aluminum blocks to make powder for more bombs. He's covered from head to toe in the dust. He's rail thin because the rabbit hunting was scarce this season. Ted's hair is wild and his clothes are literally rotting off of his body. But what does he care? He's not trying to impress anyone, and he can clean up fast if he needs to blend into society. Too bad for Ted. He'll be photographed in this state. Filthy, emaciated, and in severe need of a shave. The image will circulate around the globe and will not help Ted's desire to seem sane.
It doesn't look that bad, come on.
Swoop in, they find 40,000 pages.
It doesn't look that insane to me.
Pages of journals and plans, most written in code. The code is more complex than anything the FBI had ever seen, more convoluted than codes the KGB used during the Cold War. But Ted also left the key to the code in the cabin. Without it, the FBI wouldn't be able to decipher the decades of written confessions that definitively tied Ted to the bombings. They also find a bomb under the bed, ready to be mailed to an aerospace company in Dallas. Now the FBI has all the evidence they need. They lock up the cabin and take Ted to prison. He does not dispute that the journals with the confessions are his. In fact, he wrote them partially so that nobody would try to say he was crazy. Ted's family and his defense team attempt to convince the jury and the world at large that he is mentally ill. They're doing anything they can to avoid the death penalty, which frustrates him. He tries to fire his lawyers and defend himself. He would rather die than allow his lawyers to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. Ted pleads.
I don't think he's insane. I think he's, well, you might say anyone is insane when they start killing people or something like this, but I don't know. I think he's just misguided, right? Like, he's just one of those people that believe that, you know, their cause is so right that, you know, the only way to make their cause heard and understood is with violence, right? And that's about it. I think saying, you know, he's insane is like a bit of a cop-out. I mean, he definitely has issues, obviously, to get to this point, but I don't know.
He's guilty to his crimes and is sentenced to life in prison. Behind bars, he never stops writing.
Like, to an extent, he still has, again, some kind, like, in a way, the fact that he just mails bomb, he never actually attacks his victim directly, right? He, like, explodes them from far away, not seeing the damage by himself and stuff like that. Compared to other killers, I don't know. Makes me think maybe, again, he doesn't want to directly face the consequences on his mind of murdering someone in front of him. Yeah, I don't know.
Publishes 2 books and keeps up a lively correspondence with a wide array of journalists and admirers. He also finally makes some human connections. He strikes up a friendship with Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber who killed 168 people in 1995.
I think
Ted
I've
and
heard this
McVeigh
one
are
too.
briefly on the same prison block and find they have a lot of
I
views
think it
in
was a
common
van that he
before
parked in
McVeigh
front of
is
the
carted
place.
off to death row. Ted even finds love for the first time in his life. After a lifetime of struggling to connect with women, never going beyond a few kisses, Ted suddenly has dozens of women writing him romantic or salacious letters.
Every single time. Is that a thing? Is that a thing? I understand the appeal of bad boys or bad girls or something, but I still can't, like, it's always crazy to me. It's not, it's always like that. I mean, it's not even always like super famous one. I was watching some video recently, like some kind of a small documentary about some, you know, crazy lady on TikTok, right? Who basically has gathered a following for being insane and people watch her for that. And, you know, she basically only dates inmates, literally. That's her thing. And basically once they get out, she doesn't like them anymore, right? It's often like that. And it's insane, you know. There was basically a case of she was dating one who was literally like a child molester, and she would often, like, you know, let him around her kid, saying he's innocent and all that. It's just insane.
Only one captures his heart, a school teacher he calls his lady love. They spend thousands of hours talking by mail or in visiting booths, but they are never able to touch. He writes classical music for her before she dies of lung cancer. Later, Ted also develops cancer.
Good.
When the condition becomes advanced, he
For me, fucked up, but I don't know. Like, you're a school teacher, yet you're still, like, mentally ill enough to, like, get in a relationship with the freaking bombing terrorist in prison. Overall thing, I mean, come on now.
dies by suicide in June 2023 at 81 years old.
Oh, okay. Too afraid to face the consequences.
A political revolution. Its object will be to overthrow not governments, but the economic and technological basis of the present society.
By
In the
bombing
decades
people.
since his arrest, Ted Kaczynski continues to fascinate and sometimes inspire. The manifesto's
Really?
central argument is that technological advancements since the Industrial Revolution have robbed people of their freedom and well-being. These advancements are supposedly responsible for widespread psychological suffering and environmental devastation. It's a revolutionary call to dismantle industrial society altogether and warns that technology will inevitably...
There might be a deeper conversation about all this again. You know, for example, like, yeah, obviously, like, modern time has changed a lot of the way human function, right, with technology. You know, I was reading a study recently, and we see the fact that people had a lot less stuff that their brain needed to process, you know, in the simpler time, like things weren't great before, but you know, when you're just like you wake up with the sun, you go to sleep with the night coming, you know, you have only a few specific things to do a day, your brain was less insanely overwhelmed. When in modern society, between, you know, all the technology that we have to deal with to just function in society, you know, the complexity of all of it, the speed and everything of all of it, you know, like we're still in a period of like all this becoming a thing, and we see we have not evolved to handle that. That's why so many people are getting like so many you know, condition, mental condition, etc. Right? But also at the same time, you could say that again, like that might be a case, but at the same time, back then there was also like way less acknowledging and research and understanding of any kind of mental condition, from like autism to ADHD to depression and stuff like that. So maybe it's not that there's more now because of modern time, it's just that now we actually care about trying to deal with it and acknowledging it rather than just ignore it or something. I mean, there's clearly a lot of conversation that I'm sure can be made about his manifesto, but in the end, I don't know. Because of the way he went about it, I just feel like saying fuck all of his points and I don't care. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to want to even engage with his manifesto because of what he did. I don't know. Even if he has some points, why should we care?
Overpower human autonomy. Many of Kaczynski's observations in the manifesto are true. Some of his predictions are prescient, and a lot of the grievances are understandable. It's not hard to find people who are also frustrated with surveillance or sad about environmental destruction.
Sure.
At the time of his capture, Time magazine wrote, "There's a little bit of the Unabomber in most of us." Nowadays, Ted Kaczynski continues to find admirers online, from teens on TikTok, depressed about climate change, half-ironically saluting Uncle Ted, to the extreme right mass murderer, Anders Breivik, who heavily quoted Kaczynski's Industrial Society in his own manifesto.
I can't say I'm surprised though. I mean, you know, with recent stuff with America and all that, there's literally people right now who like don't even shy away from saying Hitler wasn't that bad, and he had some good ideas and he did some good things. So, you know, if people are willing to say that about Hitler, this doesn't surprise me, right? I mean, clearly this guy is going to have a lot of fun.
But even if most people can find parts of the manifesto they agree with, most people are not willing to kill. Kaczynski knew that most people would be repelled by his crimes, but committed them anyway. Those who find the ideas compelling might want to check out Jacques Ellul, the thinker whose ideas most inspired the manifesto. The philosopher never advocated killing. They also should check out Ted Kaczynski's diaries. They lay bare the personal motivations that drove the Unabomber, beyond the manifesto that was polished for public consumption. Technological society really did seem to anger Ted, but Ted was also very, very angry, in general.
Yeah.
In his diary, Ted Kaczynski writes that he was happy to kill innocent civilians. He took pleasure in causing people pain. He killed at least 9 dogs just because they barked too loud. He hated leftists.
What a good guy. He loved animals, right? He would never hurt a fly.
He hated doctors. He hated women. He fantasized about killing them just for rejecting him. He fantasized about killing his neighbors just because they annoyed him, including...
Okay. You know, I talked too soon earlier. I mean, it's the fault of the video presentation. You could have mentioned that earlier, so there, thanks Fern. I take back all my defense of him as not insane. Yeah, okay. I take it back.
A toddler. He condemned technology as slavery and glorified simpler times that ran on actual slavery. Kaczynski wasn't even much of an environmentalist.
Okay, I take everything back.
In his diaries, he littered proudly, he poached illegally, he logged on protected lands. You might get the sense that he only used environmentalism as a post hoc justification for his murders. A cynic who identified ecological concerns as the most acceptable excuse for killing.
That might literally what he did. Now that, again, I feel like this is a bit late in the video to mention all of that. I mean, you know, nice storytelling, but I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah, but again, yeah, with this extra context at the end, yeah, maybe that's what it was. He was using this whole like anti-technology and industrialization thing as literally like some kind of excuse maybe to himself for acting out his violent tendencies. That might have been what it is. So now I feel like there's even less, you know, less weight to anything he might have written and any ideas he might have had. Okay, well, I guess now I know about the Unabomber. I mean, I've heard the name many times before, but now I know the story. I don't like him. But I guess I wouldn't like a serial killer anyway. Like, the only serial killer I would like is one that just kills, like, I don't know, people who deserve it. Like some kind of vigilante serial killer who goes after, like, child molester and, other mass murderer or something. Then I guess I would be a fan. But, yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to say. Fucked up guy. Fucked up guy. Okay. Really messed up. But quite interesting.